my name is Marissa Hatab, and I am Douglas County's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer. Although we're not able to be together in person, I am thrilled that you will be spending the next 20 minutes learning more about what diversity, equity, and inclusion actually means to our county and what we plan on doing as far as some programs, trainings, and initiatives. So let's go ahead and get started. Today, we're going to be going through our training, which is called DEI Made Simple. And as many of us know around diversity, equity, inclusion, many times it's explained in a way that is complex, sometimes can seem overwhelming, and that is the opposite of what we're trying to do. So it will be simple today. So let's learn more. So the first thing that we're going to dive into is our agenda. So although you're not able to be in the space with us when we bring together our DEI Executive Advisory Committee, I want you to be able to see what are some of the agreements that our leaders adhere to when we come together. We'll then literally explain, what do we mean by diversity, equity, inclusion? We'll see what our commitments are, what have our leaders committed to, and ultimately what hopefully everyone in our county will commit to doing. And then we'll talk about ways that you can engage and what some of our next steps will be. So let's dive into what are some of these group agreements. Although some of these may not be applicable for our training today, these are the agreements that when our leaders are coming together, we set the stage and we set the tone for our meetings on these agreements. So one, let's engage with kind curiosity. When we're talking about topics around diversity, equity, inclusion, sometimes the conversation will be a bit uncomfortable. Sometimes we'll need to lean into that discomfort, but it makes it easier for us to do those things when we engage in a kind way and when we position ourselves with curiosity rather than defense. One diva, one mic. That simply means that when one person's talking, we'll be intentional about not cutting them off or interjecting or jumping in. We want people to be able to finish their thoughts. Lead with positive intent while recognizing intent does not eliminate harm. Some of us have heard assume positive intent. And I just like to rephrase that with, let's start there. Let's lead from that position. And that helps us, even if there's things that are said that may cause harm, meaning it may bother us a certain way, or maybe something was offensive. If we can lead with positive intent, that means we start there. We kind of can check ourselves and say, okay, Marissa, let's start from the position of believing that they meant positive intent there. But it then empowers me to be able to lean in to say, hey, consider this. Or when you said that, it made me feel this kind of way. So let's start there. Step up, step back. That simply means that some of us who may like to talk and share of our opinions, we should be aware of how we take up space and be willing to step back. And guess what? Some of us naturally step back. We may be internal processors. We may not like to say the wrong things to offend. So we'll play it safe and we won't share our thoughts. But each of us have something to contribute and all of our thoughts are valuable. So some of us need to be intentional about creating space for people to share. And some of us need to be intentional about sharing. Offer grace to ourselves and others. Again, when we're talking about matters that may have to do with age, gender, race, sexual orientation, and so much more, sometimes we can fixate on not making the wrong mistake or saying the wrong things or hurting someone, and we can really internally beat ourselves up. So if we can take the step to first offer grace to ourselves to understand that we are all growing and evolving as people, then it's easier for us to extend that grace to others. And then lastly, we value process over perfection. We know that as we're growing, as we're leading into discomfort, that it can be a messy process. And so if we can lean into that, understanding that we don't have to have all the answers right, that we can even fail forward, meaning we take a risk, we try something, but it may not work, at least we learn from it. And it's a part of the messy process. So those are some of the ways and agreements that our leaders lean in to strategically operationalizing what DEI can mean throughout the business structures of our county. So if you were in person with us, we would have been able to go through a really fun interactive activity. And I know you're probably like, Marissa, I wish I was in person. I wish I could have done those things. And I'm sorry, but I want to at least explain to you what we would have done. So it's a group activity called People to People. And in that, you meet with 3 different people. So we do 3 rounds, meeting 3 different people collectively total. And there's a series of questions that we go through, ranging from what's your favorite color? And then ultimately going deeper and deeper into a question that may be like, what is your deepest fear? Or what is one of the most pivotal childhood memories that helped shape you into who you are? That's pretty deep, right? So we kind of go through this evolution of starting pretty surface and going deeper. And in doing so, it gives us the opportunity to connect with one another, to practice really creating safe spaces for people to share. Compatibility happens where you see yourself in the other person. And ultimately, empathy is produced, and connectivity and understanding and so much. And so that's literally just an activity to really have us think and participate in what it may feel like when DEI is being done well. And so as far as what it may feel like and what it may look like, these are some of those concepts. It helps to build bridges of understanding. It helps to strengthen our connectivity. We talked about that a little bit. It provides access to opportunity to understand one another, yes. But when we're talking about how we operationalize these concepts into how we do business, that can apply to our policies. Are there access to opportunity for everyone to be able to grow and to thrive within our county structure professionally? It helps us to embrace differences and not to judge those differences or even to deflect them. It helps us to create space for others to be known and celebrated. Something as simple as, hey, we noticed that you've been on our workforce for 10 years. Like, we noticed that, we see it, and we're so grateful for you for serving in a timely manner, y'all. That's important. And creating environments where people feel safe and supported, and they don't have to worry about retaliation or anything like that. These are some of the things that we can see when DEI is being done well. So I hope that just gave you an opportunity to kind of think about, outside of just the feel good, it's the right things to do, which you'll hear a lot of people saying, this is so much more than that. It really is a space for all of us, no matter our backgrounds, to be able to come to work and to show up as our authentic selves and to thrive in all the ways possible. So let's dive into what we actually mean when we say diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so if many of you aren't familiar with this, Douglas County is a part of the National Association of County Officials. And people throughout our country in many different counties are really beginning to focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so I thought it was important for us to align our definitions with their definition as well. And so diversity is the presence of difference and multiple characteristics that make up individual and collective identities, such as our race, gender, age, religion, nationality, sexual orientation, ethnicity, our socioeconomic status, and so much more. It's all of those things combined, and sometimes individually as well. Equity. Equity is the process of identifying and removing the barriers that create disparities in the access to resources and means and the achievements of fair treatment and equal opportunities to thrive. So I want to pause here for a moment, because you'll hear people share equality and equity interchangeably. And although they're related, I say they're cousins, they're not the same thing, right? Equity focuses on fairness. Are our processes fair? Whereas equality focuses on sameness. And just like now, if I were to have treated all of you watching this through an equality lens, you wouldn't even be able to hear what I'm sharing, because equality would have been like, well, I'm going through all these different departments doing this training, and everyone should have access to the information. And because I'm going to all the departments, it's equal. It's the same. Whereas equity says, well, I understand that there's barriers in place. There's some people who work different shifts, so they may not be able to show up when I'm doing the training. What about the people who don't even work here yet? This matters so much to Douglas County. How would they get access to this information? So equity is, I need to create a virtual component of what this training is so that everyone has equal access to this information. So hopefully that clarified the difference between equity and equality. And then lastly, inclusion. Inclusion is creating environments in which any individual or group can be and feel welcomed, respected, supported, and valued to participate fully as their authentic selves. And please hear me, y'all. This is not just some feel-good, fluffy things. If we really work collectively and intentionally, this is possible. We can come to work. I mean, we are showing up in a space where we're spending 8+ hours with the people around us, building kind of in-house community. And so we should be able to come to a space and feel respected and supported and valued and to be our full selves. This isn't just kind of this feel-good kumbaya utopia. These are things that can and should be experienced when we come to work. And I don't like to just shit on us. But I think that if we're intentional, these can be some of the outcomes that we experience together. So hopefully you have a better understanding of what diversity, equity, and inclusion means. So I want to pause here. I want to give you a moment to look at this quote. Diversity is the fruit and equity is the root. What do you think that means? What does that mean to you? To me, when we're talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, most people stop at diversity. And a lot of times they think only through the lens of racial diversity, gender diversity, and LGBTQ plus topics. And then they put that label on all the work. DEI becomes just that. And I would like to say that diversity, although it is very important, it shouldn't be the destination. It should be a byproduct. So if we look at this quote, that diversity is the fruit and equity is the root, what we're saying is if we have equitable processes in place, remember, equity is about fairness and removing barriers that prevent people from having access to opportunity. So if we have systems in place ranging from policies, ranging from promotional processes, career paths, professional development, community involvement, so much. If we have it through that equity lens, people having access to opportunity to thrive, then diversity will be a byproduct. It's not the destination. It's one of the fruits that's produced by us having an equitable process in place. So let's go ahead and move forward. So before I was hired, the county released a county-wide employee survey. And up until this point, some of you may not have heard what some of those results were. So I thought it was really important for us to talk about the results, the good, and the growth opportunities, some of our strengths and growth opportunities, and how those things impacted me being hired. Because again, this was done before the DEI officer role was produced. So here are some of our strengths. 67.8% of our workforce agreed that they felt pride working for Douglas County. I do want to take a step really quickly and share that of our entire workforce, 51% participated. So this is only the lens of 51% of you. I want us to be able to get more, but we'll get there, right? So 67.8% agreed that they had significant pride for working for Douglas County. 64.2% agreed that employees understand the reporting procedures that are tied to DEI topics. 62% agreed that they had a belief that their supervisors were committed to DEI matters. And 59.2% agreed that racial, ethnic, sexual, and gender-based jokes are not tolerated at our organization. So those were some of the strengths of the survey. Let's dive into some of our growth opportunities because those are going to be attached to some of the trainings, and initiatives moving forward. Okay, so this is going to range from some of our lowest on the left to some of the, and progressively go upward towards the right. So 31.1% agreed that there is a career development path for all employees. So what that means is only 31% actually thought there are pathways tied to their careers where they know what their next steps will be. How many of you think about DEI through that lens? Our career paths, our professional development, how we're invested in as people. 35.1% agreed that free and open expression of ideas, opinions, and beliefs were welcomed in our county. 38.9% agreed that employee inclusion and decisions that directly affect their work is something that was a priority. Only 40.9% agreed that we were fostering a workplace without fear. So if you look at that second one, the free and open expression of ideas, and then kind of tie it to fostering a workplace without fear, some people feel like if they were to be open and honest about who they were or their ideas, that there may be retaliation. That's a true statement right there that people believe here. 44.6 agree that taking active measures to seek a diverse candidate pool when posting jobs was a priority to the county. And then 44.6 also agree that appropriate action would be taken if they do report discrepancies. So there's a lot of opportunities here for us to strengthen things, ranging from how you're invested in as employees, all the way to ensuring that if something's done, that we follow through as leaders to ensure that everyone feels respected in their workplaces. So hopefully this was helpful in you seeing what some of our original surveys showed our leaders. And this is some of the data that helps drive the work that we're working on. So really briefly, that's what led to the development of my role. When our leaders looked at the different things that needed to be done tied to that survey, they were like, we really need to appoint someone that can focus their intention and their time on this work. So I'm here to help develop strategic initiatives throughout all departments of the county to help implement and monitor the reports tied to those things. I partner with our HR, so I am not housed in HR. I partner with them so that we can remove unconscious bias throughout our policies and processes. I reviewed our countywide policies and help our leaders refine them through a DEI lens. I help with our recruitment and retention efforts. I help to, and this one's not fun, but I help to highlight some of our blind spots so we can be better. And again, working to help to develop some training such as this one, programs and initiatives that help to elevate some of our DEI growth opportunities. So here are our 4 strategic pillars, that 4 things that our leaders on the DEI Executive Advisory Committee focus on. We focus on our workforce development. That means the people that make up our body of employees. Our workplace inclusivity, which means our departments and our buildings that house the people in our workforce. Equitable policies and procedures. These are the policies that govern our workforce and our workplace. And then strengthen community relations. How are we going to recruit and retain and draw in if we don't have strong presence in the community where they're clear about who we are, what type of employees we want to draw in, and why our employees stay? So here are our 4 strategic priorities. These are the commitments that we're committed to doing. We're committed to intentionally building a strong, diverse, and competitive workforce. We are committed to innovatively creating pathways to success by removing barriers and creating equitable opportunities. We're committed to invest strategically within our workforce, workplace, and community. And we're committed to advancing a culture of inclusivity and belonging. So you'll hear us speak about these things over and over. These are our commitments. Our commitment statement is we're committed to cultivating a culture that strives to be equitable, inclusive, and diverse. We embrace differences and diversity of identity, ability, experience, and thought, and we actively strive for inclusive behaviors across our workforce. By advancing these values, we aim to treat everyone with respect, support, dignity, and not merely tolerate it, but fully embraced. We believe that our workforce should reflect the vast diversity of the communities we serve, and that diverse voices should be elevated and intentionally integrated into our DEI intention and initiatives. You will be able to see some of these statements throughout our departments. So, as we begin to wrap some things up, I thought it was important for you to know who sits on our executive advisory committee. We have county commissioners, we have elected officials and some of their representatives, and our department heads, all working together to see how can we move this work focus, or how can we move this work forward. The structure is we have a DEI Executive Advisory Committee. We then have 4 subcommittees. Workforce, they're aligned with our 4 strategic pillars: our workforce development, our workplace inclusivity, equitable policies and procedures, and strengthen community relations. And eventually, moving forward, we are going to be able to launch 4 employee-led task force, which will help to inform what our work is moving forward, what are some of our blind spots, and to provide solutions and moving forward. And that's where you can get involved. So finally, I hope that was helpful. I know these last 20 minutes went by very quickly, but we want to hear from you. So if you're not familiar with a QR code, so what you can do is pull out your phone, open up your camera, and just place it in front of the screen. A small box should open up, and when you click on it, you can take about 10 to 15 seconds to provide some feedback to us about how helpful or maybe not helpful this training was. We want to hear from you. Your opinions matter to us, and we hope that this was as informative and interactive as it could be, with us meeting virtually. And lastly, diversity is having a seat at the table. Inclusion is having a voice, and equity is having that voice be heard. Thank you so much for spending your last 25 minutes with us, and I hope you have a great day. Thanks.